Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Welcome to yet another TBR takedown. I'm determined to shrink this TBR pile this year and I have been using Bingo to help me do that. So we're just gonna jump right into it and pick our first prompt together because I have over 100 books on my physical TBR and we cannot waste a single second. B11, which I do have. This is a pretty book, and I actually remember when I wrote this prompt I was thinking of either my leather bound copies or my cloth bound copies, which are mostly classics. So we are starting this video off a little strong, a little scary, some might say. I'm actually gonna move this because I feel like it's gonna fall, but let's see which pretty books are tickling my fancy right now. I actually have an insane amount of what I deem like my pretty books because anytime I see a leather bound copy at a thrift store or used bookstore, I'm most likely buying it. And then I also just have an obsession with the cloth bound penguin editions. I wanted to pull out some options, but of course all of my like prettier books ended up on the bottom of all of the stacks. So I just kind of stared at my books and then I decided I want to read Little House. This actually has all of the first 5 novels in it. I don't think I'm going to read all 5, but I definitely want to at least read the first one, which the first one is Little House in the Big Woods. We'll see how long it takes me to get through these because I think these are actually like children's books, and if I end up running through them really fast, maybe I will read all 5. Maybe if I love them, I'll just read all 5. I don't know. We're gonna find out together. It's been a couple of days, mostly because I decided to read this entire book rather than just reading one of the 5 books that are in this book. I just felt like it would be so much more satisfying to read this entire book rather than just part of it, and that way we're also taking a physical book off the TBR, because I feel like if we just read one of these books, I feel like we're not really taking this book off the physical TBR because I obviously like haven't finished it. I did make it to chapter 23 in Farmer Boy, which is about this much through the entire bindup, which I think is actually pretty close to finishing Farmer Boy. Now, I did finish the first book already, and since I've already started the second book as well, I feel like I can kind of give a summary of both books because the second book doesn't directly follow what happens in the first book. I'm not really sure how they connect at this point, and I'm also not sure if they ever connect because I believe book 3 follows what happens at the end of book 1, like directly right after. So I'm kind of confused about the setup of all of this, but honestly with classics I just assume I'm going to be at least a little bit confused, and I know that can't just be me, okay? I say that, but I know someone out there gets it, okay? But anyway, I finished Little House in the Big Woods, which is the first book. I feel like I would probably just give this one a 3-star. Pretty run-of-the-mill classic for me, although I will say, I feel like if you're new to classics, these books might be helpful because I think these books are actually technically children's books, but they still have the old English style. So, sorry, the AC just kicked on, so the fan is really loud. So I feel like if you're not used to reading classics, that can help you kind of ease into like the old English writing style. But so far in both Little House in the Woods and in Farmer Boy, they have both just basically followed these 2 characters' lives and what their lives look like and like what they do in a day. So obviously life back then is very, very different than life right now. Like for example, they're killing their own meat, they're walking into town to like trade the fur, like things like that. I think they also might live in like remote Canada. Was this? I don't actually know when this takes place, but I think it's really interesting because Farmer Boy, which is the one I'm reading right now, sorry, I feel like it's kind of confusing that I'm talking about both of these books at the same time. I probably should not have done this. I've been working all week, so I've been mostly listening to the audiobook. I think I said that already. I can't remember. My brain is fried. I need to get more sleep. Anyways, like I was going to say, Farmer Boy, I'm actually enjoying, I think, a little bit more than I was enjoying the first book, but that is simply because all of the different locations that he talks about in the book, I have pretty much been to. Like he talks about Malone, New York, and he talks about Saranac Lake, and I think even at some point he talks about Albany, New York, and I'm like, I've been to all of these places in upstate New York, so it's kind of fun to like be like, oh, like I've been there. And I don't know, it's just like it makes me kind of nostalgic for all the times that I've spent in upstate New York. Not that I spent like a ton of my life in upstate New York, but I've been multiple times, so it's kind of fun to see it in a book like this. And I also just have a little bit more nostalgia for Farmer Boy in general because I remember the whole reason I wanted to read these books was because when I was a little kid and I would go like visit my grandma, she had a copy of Farmer Boy, and I just remember always wanting to read it when I was a little kid. I think I was just like too young to read. Anyway, all of that being said, I don't feel like any of these books are going to be more than a 3-star, but they might surprise me. I feel like classics for me are a little bit harder to like really fall in love with, and for me a 3-star is, oh, this book is good, but like I probably won't think about it again, or I probably won't really sit and ponder the book. I probably won't immediately think about it when someone is like, hey, what book should I read, or like, you know what I mean. It's kind of middle of the road. It's enjoyable, but I'm not obsessed. I feel like I always have to say that when I rate a book a 3-star. I'm gonna go shower, get ready for bed so I I can sit and read more of this book physically. It's now been a couple of days. I actually finished Farmer Boy and Little House on the Prairie. We'll start with Farmer Boy because I feel like I talked about that book a little bit already. I'm gonna rate this one a 3-star. It was fun, but it didn't wow me by any means. And then I started Little House on the Prairie, and I actually really didn't like this book to the point where I almost DNF'd it, and it started to feel like a chore to read it. And so at this point, I don't really feel like reading the next 2 books. I just know it's gonna feel so satisfying to finish the entire bind up, and then I can finally say that I've read like my entire pretty book version of it. I don't even know where the book is right now. So honestly, that's my motivation right now. And I honestly will probably just listen to most of the next 2 books. And honestly, at this point, I feel like I've listened to most of the series so far anyway, just because I like to listen to audiobooks while I work. And you know, working 40 hours a week gives me so much time to listen to audiobooks. So that's what I've mostly been doing. I feel like at this point, I'm just going to listen / read the next 2 books, and I will probably see you after I finish them. I finished the first 5 books in the Little House series. I did enjoy them, and for simplicity's sake, I'm going to rate all of these books a 3-star. But I will say, I feel like I prefer listening to them. I think that's also partly because there are songs in these books, and in the audiobook they actually like play music and sing the songs, which I thought was really fun. Also, I've just found audiobooks to be an easier way for me to get through the classics that I want to read, but I just don't have the motivation to like sit down and physically read. And then I also said earlier that I really wanted to look up the history of this book, and I actually wish I knew the history of this book before I went into the book, because I also think that that would have made a lot more sense just having that background information. But basically the most interesting thing to me that I learned, this is a story about the author, but it's written in like kind of like a third person point of view, as in like it's not a stereotypical autobiography type of novel. And then it also said that some of it wasn't 100% factual, like some of the characters were made up, so it wasn't like a true 100% autobiography. That's what I was trying to say. But anyway, I thought that was super interesting. And then I also thought it was interesting that her daughter actually edited these books for her, and she was a big part of the reason why Ingalls Wilder actually wrote this whole series. So I thought that was really interesting. And now to pick out my next book. I feel like this lighting is washing me out, but I am a pale girl. So anyways, G53, don't have that. O75, I don't have that either. B5, don't have that. B8, okay, I have this. This is really exciting, but also a little nerve-wracking. It's a random number generator, and I say it's nerve-wracking because there's a couple books on my TBR that I am specifically saving for videos, so I really hope I don't get any of those books, but we'll see. Actually, I really like prompts like this because I don't like choosing books, in the sense that I feel like a lot of these books have been sitting on my TBR for a really long time, and I want to make sure I'm getting to them. Okay, I'm gonna put the max in as 100, even though I know I have more than 100 books on here. I just don't know exactly how many. It's maybe like 110? I'm not sure. Generate. Okay, 61. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61. Okay, so technically this is the second book in the series, so I'm gonna pick the first book. I was honestly worried that this would happen because I didn't really want 2 classics in a row, but it's fine. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. Rachel Catherine just read this book pretty recently and she really liked it. I also think it's interesting that I'm technically reading like 2 classics that are also children's books like in a row. I don't know. I just feel like that's interesting. So I'm going to read Anne of Green Gables. I made it to chapter 5, which is page 37, so I'm not super far into this book, but I have a couple of thoughts, so I figured I would share them and then also kind of tell you what this book is even about. So basically you have Anne, obviously, but she comes to live with the Cuthberts. Wait, what is their name? Cuthbert. Yeah, and they have decided to adopt what they think is going to be a little boy, but when they go to pick up the boy that they're adopting, it ends up being Anne, who obviously is not a boy. And at this point, Anne is like, please, like, don't leave me. I'm so sad. Like, I thought I was gonna finally have a home. And honestly, before I picked up this book, I fully forgot that I watched the TV show a really long time ago. I don't think I ever actually finished it because I think when I watched it, the first couple of seasons were out, but the entire show wasn't out at that point. So I don't think I've ever finished it, but I basically have seen this book in TV show format, which normally I read the books before I watch the TV shows, but it was so long ago, I probably just didn't even realize that I had these books, and then I was like watching the TV show, and then I should have read the book before I watched the TV show. Anyways, but I do remember not really loving Anne's character in the TV show, and that's the whole reason why I never went back and watched the newer seasons. And her character definitely makes sense. Like, the problems that I have with her character, like, it makes sense. Because my main problem with Anne's character is that she is just very, very, very immature. I think she's only like 10 years old, and so she is young, like she's a child. But to me, she just feels like she acts younger than her age. And I feel like with everything she's been through, she would at least act like older than her age rather than younger than her age. Like, as in, if she's not acting her age, I feel like she would act older than her age, not younger than her age. But I will say I feel like her character bothers me a lot less when it's on a page versus when I can see it on a screen. So I actually feel like so far I am enjoying the book more than I was enjoying the TV show, which is good because obviously I didn't love the TV show enough to even continue watching it. So hopefully that means I will like the books enough to continue reading them, because I have the entire series. The entire series was actually gifted to me by my grandma when she was moving. She was like getting rid of a bunch of stuff, and I was like, oh, I'll take those books off your hands if you are getting rid of them. And she was like, yes, please take them. So anyways, I'm gonna keep reading. Hopefully things will continue to be good from here. Also, I did want to say, I think it's interesting that I've read 2 classics back to back, and both of these classics I've actually found easy to read. And that could be because both books were pretty much written for children, but that makes me feel so much better about myself and reading classics, because I've always struggled to read classics. I've just struggled when it's in Old English, and I feel like neither of these books I've struggled with reading, so I'm proud of that. I just made it to chapter 19, which is almost halfway through this book, and upon further deliberation and then also just reading the book, I have more to say about Anne's character and like what I was saying in the last clip, mostly about like her being immature and like her age and things like that. I was thinking, because it said something about her age again, that she's I think 11. I can't remember. She might be 11 or 12. I don't know why, I can't remember. But I was thinking this might actually be a realistic depiction of an 11-year-old back when this book was originally written, because I do feel like kids nowadays act older than they actually are, and I feel like that's mostly because social media. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not a parent. I haven't interacted with an 11-year-old in a very long time. I just feel like she acts more immature than I would think a standard like 11-year-old would be like in today's day and age. But like I said, I feel like that was probably different back then. I also realized I don't normally read books where the main character is a child, so I feel like that could also be part of it. But I am really excited to see where her character goes as Anne grows up. Obviously, I won't get that in this book, but I think that the series is like 8 or maybe it's 7 books long. I don't know, but it's a pretty long series. Also, sometimes it feels like Anne says everything and nothing at the same time, because she goes on these pretty long tangents. They're not like super long to the point where I'm bored by any means, but sometimes she ends them and I'm like, girl, like that was a whole lot of nothing, but also just a whole lot of everything. I don't even know how to describe it. I also want to circle back to me talking about the TV show, because I said I've seen the TV show, but I haven't seen the TV show in so long that I don't remember anything that happens. And part of me is like, maybe I will circle back to watch a little bit more of the TV show, obviously after I read these books, because I don't want to like remember or like spoil anything. Honestly, so far I like the book better than I liked the TV show, but also at the same time I don't feel like a lot is happening right now, and I do feel like it's a little bit predictable. Like I've already predicted 2 things, and I don't feel like there's any major plot. It's very much character focused, which if I like the characters I don't mind it, and I don't not like Anne by any means. I'm just a little bit on the fence about her character, but I don't not like her, because I think I'm leaning towards liking her more than not liking her, because I am having a fun time. And like I said, this has been one of those easier classics for me to read, which is just exciting for me as someone that does not normally read a ton of classics. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell by this video, but normally I do not read a ton of classics. Also, I need to talk about the scene that I read a couple of chapters ago. It's not a spoiler. It's something so minor that is done that I just can't get over, because it is so crazy. Well, it's not that crazy, but I could never imagine having to do this. So basically, Anne gets in trouble in class, and her punishment is that she has to go stand in front of the chalkboard for the rest of the day. But written on the chalkboard, it says something like, Anne has a temper or something like that. And I just cannot imagine having to basically stare at your classmates with that written above your head as your punishment. That is crazy to me. If that ever happened to me, I'm not sure I would ever make it back to school ever again. Not to be dramatic, but that sounds horrible. I just finished Anne of Green Gables. I actually ended up listening to the last 30-ish% of this book, and I'm actually debating if this is one of my favorite classics or not. I feel like you could not tell based on how I was talking about this book earlier, but I ended up warming up to Anne a lot more as the book went on. And I honestly don't normally love classics, but I actually really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed how much easier this was to read than other classics that I've read, and just how much more lighthearted and fun it was. And I know I was complaining about Anne's character before, but she is just so unique, and like I said, her character was really warming up to me. I feel like for the most part, she was just so happy, and she still had that childish joy that is just so unique to children for the most part. She also kept using this phrase, I'm in the depths of despair, and I definitely want to start using that phrase. I just, for some reason, every time she would say that, I'd be like, yeah, I love that for some reason. I don't know. But last thing I want to talk about before we move on to picking our next book, I want to talk about the ending. I was so surprised by the end, and I specifically remember talking about this book yesterday and saying like, I felt like it was a little bit predictable, like I was predicting things. Yeah, the end, didn't see that coming at all. Also, I swear Anne is like 11 years old at the beginning of the book, and then by the time the book ends, I think she's 16. And 5 years feels like a lot to be in this little book. But as of right now, I think that this book is a 4-star, but I want to keep thinking about it because I keep toggling between a 3.5 and a 4-star. But I think it might be a 4. I don't know. I'll let you know for sure at the end of this video. It is time to pick the next book. I honestly have no idea what I would even want to read right now, but good thing we don't have to pick because the bingo board is gonna pick for us. Oh, 70. I have, guys. Oh my gosh, you're kidding. It's a classic. So I will now have 3 for 3 of reading classics in this video. So let me look at the classics that I have and I'll decide which one is speaking to me the most, because I know I have a lot of classics on my physical TBR, which is specifically why I put this on the bingo card, because I was like, I need to get through my classics. So I guess that's what we're doing in this video. We're getting through all of my classics. I've been sitting here for the longest time trying to decide which book I want to read. My top 2 choices were Emma by Jane Austen, and then I also have The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Both of these were just calling to me the most out of all of my classics that I own. I always felt like I owned a lot of classics, but looking at them, it really is just a lot of like bind-ups in like my leather bound copies, or it's Jane Austen's work, because I have all of her cloth bound penguin editions, because I do eventually want to read all of Jane Austen's work, which is why I pulled out Emma, and this is the one that I'm leaning towards reading from her for some reason. I don't even know why, because I don't know what Emma is about, to be honest, but I started reading the back of The Bell Jar and I was like, this sounds so good. So I actually think we're gonna start The Bell Jar, and hopefully I will read Emma very soon, just not today. I just made it to page 116, which is basically halfway through this book, and I'm very much enjoying it so far. It's very much a character study, and for some reason I was not expecting that. But basically our main character is a very successful college student. She gets this big scholarship to study at a big university, and she also gets an internship in New York City. So she has things like that that are setting her up for success in the future, but she's kind of just obviously not really into all of these things. Like there's something missing in her life, basically. I feel like that's the best way I know how to describe it. But we are following her through her mental health struggles, so you definitely need to check the trigger warnings before reading this book. And I can already kind of tell that she's going downhill, but for some reason I expected this book to be very sad, and so far I'm not feeling that, but I'm very, very, very much enjoying it, and I definitely feel like it could have potential to get very sad. Also, this isn't written in Old English. For some reason I always just assume classics are written in Old English. I don't know why I do that though, but I was shocked that this one isn't, and it's a good thing that this one isn't, because I don't love reading Old English. Also, another random side note, but I love this cover so much. I don't know if they ever changed this cover, but I love it. I'm obsessed with it. The like little pops of pink and the text style. I just love it so much. have finished The Bell Jar. I have so much to say about this book, so I'm sorry if this seems all over the place. I will try to keep it as concise and also not all over the place as much as I possibly can. As I was reading, I literally had to keep writing things down because I was like, oh, I want to talk about this, oh, I want to talk about this, oh, I want to talk about this, because there was just so much I want to say about this book, but I didn't want to keep putting the book down so that I could update. So first off, like I said earlier, this discusses a lot about mental health, and it does go into quite a bit of detail at some parts of the book. So again, like I said, definitely check the trigger warnings. But every time I read about mental health during this time period and later, it always shocks me how they used to treat mental health. And I feel like a lot of the time she's basically pretty much on her own because of the way that they would treat mental health and the way that doctors would treat their patients. And honestly, a lot of the treatments that were done to her, I didn't really understand them. It just left me feeling a bit confused, but maybe that's also just because I don't really know like the history behind like those treatments and back in the day and that kind of like medical stuff. I don't know, but it wasn't a big enough part of the book for it to be like, what is going on? I don't like this book kind of a thing. Also, the beginning part of this book seems very different than the last half of the book. I definitely think the structure makes sense because in the beginning you can kind of see her struggling a little bit until all of a sudden like she kind of reaches that breaking point that kind of tips her over the edge. There's also parts of this book that reminded me of A Little Life. Not that they are like the same book at all, but I feel like this book was as impactful as A Little Life was on me. Actually, maybe A Little Life was a little bit more impactful on me. I really enjoyed A Little Life, but I never recommend it because of how heavy that book is. This one is definitely heavy too. There were parts of this book where I just kind of felt a little almost like nauseous, very uneasy at certain parts of the book because there are a couple scenes where she kind of goes into a lot of detail and I'm like, I don't know if I can handle that amount of detail. But the writing of this was so good. Like whenever I talk about liking flowy writing in my reading vlogs, this is the writing that I'm talking about. Lots of metaphors, lots of similes, and I just really liked that. And the way that she does it, like it doesn't feel cheesy by any means. Like it feels like that was just how it was meant to be. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but after reading this book, it made me really want to pick up her journals, which that book has been on my TBR for a really long time. But I feel like now it has kind of been bumped up to a little bit higher on my TBR. Because also when I finished this book, I was a little bit curious on like the history of the book. I didn't look super into detail about it. I really want to read that book now. I just have reservations about it because everyone says how heavy of a book that is. And also it kind of feels wrong because it's like her journals and that were published after she died. So it was like they were never intended to be seen by the public, but I really want to read them. Which also reminds me of a passage in this book that I honestly wanted to write in this book simply because of this passage, because I was like, I need to read this passage to you guys. Basically, a lot of people say that the Bell Jar reflects Sylvia Plath's life and that this is kind of like an insight into her mind. And I'm pretty sure that connection came about after her journals were published. I'm pretty sure. Like I said, I could be wrong. I didn't do a super deep dive into the history of this book. I just did like a really quick, watched like a little quick 10-minute YouTube video and I was like, oh fun, cool, like that's enough information for me, you know what I mean? But there's a passage in this book that I was just like, wait a second. It says, a feeling of tenderness filled my heart. My heroine would be myself, only in disguise. She would be called Elaine. Elaine. I counted the letters on my fingers. There were 6 letters in Esther too. It seemed a lucky thing. When I read that, literally goosebumps, because I had already known a little bit about like the connection between the Bell Jar and Sylvia Plath's life, but literally Sylvia, that has 6 letters. That has 6 letters. Oh, I literally was like, this is crazy. Also just kind of ingenious. Like, I also kind of want to touch on in all 3 of these books, I feel like when it comes with reading classics, there's things in here that are said that I just rubs me the wrong way. I feel like a lot of classics say things that are not okay. I feel like knowing that kind of holds me back from reading a lot of these classics, but I am glad I got through all of these classics in this video. Like I said, there's so many classics on my physical TBR, but started off the video by reading the first 5 books in the Little House series. I rated these all a 3-star just for simplicity's sake, and also because I read them back to back, so it was kind of hard for me to decipher which book was which, because I think I have a problem when books are binded up like this. I'm like, it's just one book, but really no, it's 5 books. So this one was a 3-star for me. And then I talked about earlier how I was like, is Anne of Green Gables my favorite classic? It's not, but I am going to give this a 3.5 star, and I'm definitely going to read the rest of the series because I did really like this, and just Anne's character is so unbelievably unique and she's just a fresh character. And then of course I finished this video by reading The Bell Jar, which I rated a 4 star. I don't think I said that yet actually, but yes, I think I'm gonna rate this book a 4 star. I will let you know if that changes. Before we end this video, I feel like it would be fun to count through the rest of my physical TBR because I haven't done this I think since February when I originally started this video, and I feel like okay, now we're like 6 months in, like we're halfway through my TBR takedown. Well, I will probably keep doing this for a while, but I started February out with 123 books on my physical TBR, so let's see how many are left. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 14 15 16 17 18 22 23 24 25 26 9 30 31 2 33 34 35 36 37 38 39 44 45 46 47 48 49 54 55 56 57 58 59 60 64 65 66 67 68 69 77 78 79 60 70 88 89 90 91 92 98 99 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109. We're getting through it slowly but surely. I don't know why I'm surprised that we have less books on this TBR than we started the year off with, but I am happy about that, even though it is still a very, very large number. My goal was like, what? Did I say 75? Or maybe I even said 50, which is crazy. We're probably not going to get to either of those goals, to be honest. But you know what? We're shrinking the physical TBR, and that is all that matters. But thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!